Okay, so I recently put some Taranis Gimbals on my Turnigy Evolution, and some people online were asking how I did that. Um, I've never made a video before, so I'm just going to kind of run through this one time, and what you get, you get. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But as you can see, it does fit all in the original casing still. Screws are out right now because I'm going to show you the insides, but everything buttons up back to how it should be, all nice and tight, nothing modified on the outside of the case here. And we do have the Taranis Gimbals here. I'll show you the inside. So quite a few modifications had to be done to allow space. For one, the LEDs have been removed. You know, there's these LED pads here typically that feed into a larger wire system. It was just too many wires for me to make this space fit. So I removed those boards and just kind of soldered directly. Using a voltmeter, followed the leads as to which wire was which so that I could keep just the ones I need in this connector here and get rid of everything else. And here's what it looks like. Copious amounts of hot glue, obviously. I had to find a way to hold everything still. Since we had to modify the gimbals, there was no screws to mount in them. No way to hard mount it on its own. So, but let me show you what we got here. I have another pair of gimbals here. These are Taranis gimbals. Just to give you an idea of what you've got to do. So the first thing you got to do to get it to fit is to trim all these corners off. Basically make this the outside perimeter, flush all the way around. I used mainly an Exacto knife, just kind of chipping away. I did grab a pair of scissors at first to kind of cut the corner, and then smooth off the sides with an Exacto knife. That's basically all the modification you have to do to that right there. When it comes time to trying to fit them in, I did have to trim this back a little bit and then this down in order to get these two to fit along the middle board right here. You can't see it again, but these have been trimmed a little bit on the bottom to allow space. Now the gimbal itself, this is a wire connector that goes into the Taranis board. These two right here are for, what do you call them? Trim switches. You won't be needing those. So essentially what I did is just cut them off right here and lay 3 wire per each potentiometer. So as you can see, when you move it up and down, this side potentiometer is the one that's affected. So depending on what stick it is, that's either going to be your elevation or your throttle, elevator or throttle. And then left and right moves this potentiometer, and that's going to be your ailerons and your rudder. So snipping these 3 wires, or these 6 technically, and you see here they're all color coded. So we've got brown, yellow, and red. The browns are the ground, the red is the positive, and the yellow is the signal voltage. It's as easy as that. So essentially you'll have 4 total signal wires, 1 for each direction on the sticks that we can put into here. So this is the original connector from the Evolution. I just basically cut it a little bit above there and then soldered everything into this. So we've got three wires here. The grounds are together to this ground. The positive voltage is together to the voltage one, and then there's 1 wire each going to the signal. And we did that same thing on both sides. So the pin out for this thing, as looking at the Evolution from this angle, the far right is ground. The next one is channel 1 signal, channel 2 signal, voltage. And that's for this side stick, basically your throttle and your rudder. The second half goes over to your right stick, which is for your elevator and aileron. And then again, it kind of starts over the same. This is your ground, which is what I would call pin 5, reading from the right. Pin 6 and 7 are your channels 3 and 4 signal wire, and then pin 8 is again voltage to feed this right side stick. So essentially you just have to cut that lead off from that 8-pin connector and then solder these in. Your left stick over here, put those positive voltages together on pin 4, put the grounds together on pin 1, and then you have 1 signal wire to channel 1, 1 signal wire to channel 2, as I just showed you there. So when it comes time to modifying the case, it's going to be kind of hard to show you because I've already done it here, but essentially these rings that hold the gimbals themselves, that was the first thing I had to attack. Basically they're kind of indented into the case and they have a raised rim on the inside. You got to take an Exacto knife and kind of carve that out essentially and bring it all down. Now it is a tight fit once you get these in there. You get to the point where you kind of have to wedge one side and then pop the other, but I had to I had to take them in and out a bunch of times as I was messing with this, and they came out in and out every time just fine, no problems. Also modified, this was an accident for me because whenever I was messing with the board down here trying to reroute these wires, I accidentally unsoldered the trace for the power switch. So my original power switch doesn't work. I hot glued it to keep it safe. And I had to instead remove the potentiometer and replace it with a switch from my Taranis. As you can see, I pulled voltage from the battery over here, ran it up to the switch, and then ran an output over to here. So mine actually turns on with the power switch right there. You see it was coming on. Mine turns on with the power switch. And I don't have the back connected, so it's reading that those switches are down. The good thing though is this potentiometer is not one of the switches that it checks for whenever it starts up to see that if it's in a certain situation. In fact, it doesn't even care about it. And that potentiometer switch that's normally here plugs in right here. So you can leave it completely unplugged. You don't have to worry about it. You can take it out and use it as a neck strap hole, put a nut and a bolt through or something like that, whatever you want to do. Or just leave it there, it doesn't matter. So everything else remained pretty much the same. These wires here, they're basically routed to the same spot. I did kind of wrap them under the board and around to make room for the gimbal, but there was nothing changed there. And ideally I would like to have not changed anything from these power leads as well, but again I screwed up and I had to improvise. So once I got everything settled and exactly how I liked, I essentially just filled everything with hot glue to the max. It is incredibly solid, nothing moves even the tiniest bit. I think with that amount of glue will be good. The downside is obviously that if these gimbals ever break or wear out, I'm not going to be able to replace them. I mean, this is essentially throw the thing away at that point or spend hours and hours digging all this shit out, which I'm not going to do. I'm hoping that by the time this thing misbehaves, there will either be an Evolution version 2 that I can hop on, or Taranis will have made some kind of new game style case because I really like the case style. Or maybe I will have designed a 3D model that I can move normal Taranis components into and have this style of controller still. So I think that should pretty much cover the breakdown. Nothing really had to change. Again, you're literally just changing wire for wire, gimbal to gimbal. The main thing you have to focus on is getting them to fit correctly and getting the back on and everything. But again, no other modifications of the case were necessary besides taking off the bottom rims of these holes just so I can get the gimbal further in, because it does actually raise above the old one. You can tell the other ones were recessed, but these are so much taller that these actually raise above the unit right here. You can see that, hopefully. I'm not even watching what the camera does, so good luck to you guys watching this shit. And I think that'll cover it. See ya.